When I first played Diablo, I didn't pay too much attention to the opening. The imposing atmosphere, recurring shots of a sword being cool on a hill, traveling through a decrepit town, the sense of abandonment and death, a crow resorting to a corpse for its next meal, and yet someone is present in the village who will begin a journey leading into darkness, terrors, and telling from the end of the intro, Diablo itself. There were two reasons for this. One is my disc would not automatically play the intro. Two, I was 9 years old, and I think it's important to point to when my family started playing video games. And really, I just kind of knew that they were always there. I have early memories with my babysitter. Her name was Raina. I always will remember that name. Fiddling around with After Dark, the screensaver software, and after that were floppy disks containing Wheel of Fortune and Mega Race, and figuring out how to run them on MS-DOS on Windows 98. But these had their time in the sun, and we moved on to bigger things, and continued on and moved forward. And Diablo sticks out as the game that embodied my family all the way to the present. Especially Diablo 2, but we'll cross that road when we come to it. For now, let's cross the road of, so why are you playing Diablo 1 at 9 years old? That must have messed you up. Okay, well, I'll parse this and explain. Observational learning. I like learning through what I see and model it. I use that information and transform it into something I can apply myself. So if I see someone in my family playing Diablo, I absorb as much as I can, taking in actions, decisions, mistakes, successes, and enjoy spending time with someone. You ever heard of the term family game night? Why do family games have to be restricted to a night or be scheduled? This isn't a talk about family dynamics or about broad society, but a family having a shared interest has profound effects that I want to share, and why Diablo is my family game. Before I started playing myself, I watched everyone else, even my mom play. She didn't play very long, by the way. It wasn't the game for her and went back to 7th Guest, but that showed me how powerful it is to take an interest in other people's interests and be involved. She didn't have to, but it was impactful. And Diablo was impactful to me, both positively and negatively when you are 9 years old, trying to process seeing prying a stone out of the head of a demon, leaving an empty hole where the brain should be, and jamming said stone into your own head because that is totally fine. Everything's fine. Which also makes me think about Diablo 2 cinematics and how they impacted me as well. But we'll get to that later. Put a pin in that. I think I have to put that down to the journey of Diablo itself and the feeling of it, going ever downwards. Because it's resurfaced in my dreams and how I perceive myself. I have been going through long-term therapy, and part of that therapy has been peeling back decades of events to discover the core, or in my case, cores, plural, of my mental damage and abuse that have led to harsh negative cognitions I identify as true, and replace them with positive cognitions. It has made my dreams that much more vivid recently. I've had to descend deep into myself to discover and confront what I have shoved deep down that still causes distress. One of these dreams was adventuring deeper into a dungeon, stopping 8 floors down or so to rest and considered whether or not I wanted to continue and see what waited further down, or how much further down there actually was. I decided to keep going and found myself in a massive room devoid of light, standing on the edge of darkness before I woke up. This dream felt like 3 to 4 days had passed, when really only 4 hours had passed. The clock read 2:30 a.m. There's something to be said about the comparison I found between myself and Diablo, because Diablo 1 is imprinted on me, and will continue to be. I've been captivated with, I guess you could call the Call of the Void, but maybe more like the abyss. The allure of what's beneath and descending deeper and deeper into the unknown, and sometimes warped and twisted places. The Binding of Isaac kind of does this, heading deeper and deeper underneath the basement, but also games around the same time as Diablo, like Ultima Underworld and its depictions of the levels of the Stygian Abyss. Even more simplistic games like Downwell also explore this, descending down a well, descending into unfamiliar territory leading to eldritch, indescribable horrors. There are also examples of working your way out of the underground like Avernum or Beyond Divinity, and recent games like Pyre. With all of these examples and Diablo itself, I continue to be intrigued by the creation of meticulously crafted underground environments. I'm fascinated with thinking about the amount of work it would realistically take to construct even 2 floors of underground underneath a cathedral, not to mention the catacombs and whether that was pre-constructed or an accident. Wait, I can add Neopets to this list as well when it comes to that section. I will never escape it. Diablo is also goal-oriented. At the start, you enter the church and say who you can. I can still recite Ogden's speech at the beginning of the game like it was nothing. But as you descend, the goal changes, or I guess becomes forgotten. Things feel less focused beyond continuing down level by level. Some people become embroiled in the journey and the mini-adventures along the way. Some people have used the term quest table, but that's too technical for how I want to speak about this. But there is an instilled sense of mystery created. Sometimes at the door of the cathedral you will encounter a dying man, but sometimes not. And I would think, what does this mean? And would there be a change this time around? Change shows up from choosing a different class before you start the game. Warrior, rogue, or sorcerer. We didn't have the Hellfire expansion until later, so the monk came too late. So which did I choose? I chose rogue. Out of the 5 members of my family, 4 chose rogue. My dad chose warrior because I just considered it obvious. I could see my dad swinging a sword around. Like I said before, I watched everyone else play and majority won. But while warrior seemed like an obvious choice for me, rogue also spoke to me because it looked easier. Firing an arrow into the darkness instead of running headfirst into the unknown felt safer to manage the dread and uncertainty that the game creates. If I could put distance between me and danger, I would. But what about the sorcerer? Well, the sorcerer is hard, I guess? I'll try to explain. Attempts were made to dig and explore what the sorcerer felt like to play, but none of us really attached to the style. I certainly was not going to truly understand and take advantage of the extra mechanics, I guess, that the sorcerer really focused on. I constantly forgot that you could cast spells even as a rogue or warrior, and could somewhat mix classes depending on how fortunate you were with founding books. So the sorcerer seemed out of our league, and not why we were playing Diablo in the first place, which allowed for mystery to continue living on in this game for over 20 years now. Mystery that I could have Googled and removed, but just haven't. It's one of the strengths of Diablo, its replayability. You would not experience everything in one go. I can't speak for mods of Diablo like the Hell and what is included and changed, but the mystery of descending again and again continues to be intriguing. I don't think I will ever know, or want to know, what the full spellbook contains, and what is at the disposal of the player if you're lucky enough, because I want to hold on to that feeling of discovery. The discoveries my family would make turned into conversations at the dinner table, so it was not just talking about school and how it was fine, in huge quotes, shielding ourselves from trauma, which I learned brutally and honestly in 2021, does not work. But those talks were important and opened my mind at that age to how stories could be written, and understanding why authors put so much energy into describing setting and atmosphere in their stories. Imagery is vital to the power of many stories, because if it does not have it, pacing and energy can fall apart. And then I'm reading and experiencing a story that I would consider boring due to my lack of investment. Although the sound effects of Diablo leave such a deep wound for how sharp and sometimes painful it is to listen and process what's happening. The noises of demons and contact of weapons against enemies, and the sounds of bats specifically. And since I played as a rogue, avoiding dying at all costs. I certainly wasn't playing Diablo for its story. Sometimes I felt bad when I was at a point where the encompassing story showed up again, cutscene and all, and I was wondering what I had missed. It was the journey, not the destination, that kept me going. The unique inclusiveness through family make this particular game special. And as I grew up, things change. Sometimes slowly, sometimes faster than you could ever expect. Especially when a new guest came into frame.